The earliest involvement was when I was 11 and I was a part of an art guild. I was sort of in this group with a bunch of much older, established landscape artists. And so I was doing colored pencil drawings. And the majority of work that I showed was these strange sort of organ-esque sort of internal body parts that I was sketching out. That was my first sort of introduction to that. And I wasn't heavily, I didn't frequent as a young child a lot of galleries or museums, but I pored over art books and always just was drawn to that initially, visually. Dabbled a little bit the older I got into film and costume design and set design. Did some internships and photography. So that was always kind of the goal, ultimately, to pursue fine art. That was, I guess, the first introduction. Hi, I'm Kite, a conceptual artist based here in Nashville, Tennessee. Planned on going to Chicago Institute of Art. I got married instead. I was married at 21. From being quite prolific and producing work, it sort of came to a halt for different reasons. So there was probably a 10-year span that wasn't producing a whole lot. I had ideas the whole time, but in the midst of being married and not producing, I didn't know at the time how it was affecting me, but after the fact, I think there was just a lot of places that were there, but were, it went mute. Once the marriage ended and I started sort of exploring what I wanted to pursue in terms of just like work and creatively, it was just this huge narrative and verbiage that wanted to come out. Moved from the house that I had lived in while I was married and transitioned to the home that I am in now. Started noticing or feeling kind of displaced in my own physical landscape, sort of here and who I was and relationally. It was strange because it was this neighborhood and observing the people, getting to know the community. And so I started thinking about things that were written about suburbia and the relationships and what that looks like. It kind of all felt the same, kind of the Stepford wife sort of throw off. And so I was thinking, how could you say it differently? I began to write some ideas down, and simultaneously I felt like these objects were almost more real than me, feeling very undefined and not knowing how to name myself. So then I started taking photos in my bathroom because there was a mirror and I could work off of it. Just the lighting was good, and so I would shoot and I would just take these objects. The title is The Ex-Housewife Portraits. The housewife having to do a little bit with, obviously, a woman specifically, everyday objects you might find that would abide and reside in the home. So these are just familiar, everyday tools, as well as kind of the contrast between, there's also kind of a wordplay on wife and house. So the wife as the example of the human or relational part, and then the house being kind of the object. And then the X, I think a lot of people see it as formally known as, or, but for me it was looking at it more like a mathematical equation. The X being just the unknown factor in the sentence that once sort of reviewed over in full can be then defined. The self-portraits, when I'm in these photos, it's not a self-portrait, it's not me being the self, it's more personalizing or putting a characteristic on these objects, so they kind of play as the setting subject. Me being involved, it doesn't make it a still life, like it creates a dimension to it, but also the play that I'm the backdrop and they're the forefront. And so enhanced. What becomes so familiar, what we kind of grow used to seeing every day, all of a sudden becomes unfamiliar. I think anytime you arrange things in groups or in multiples, arrange them differently, displace it, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I didn't notice this. It was sort of a play on that. That's the concept. In the beginning, I think it was just being developed, so there was a little bit more of maybe my face showing, or it would have been considered like, oh yeah, it's a self-portrait of you. At that point, I had no agenda. It wasn't about like, okay, now I'm gonna work on this idea, and I'm gonna. It was just helping me sort of maybe pre-verbal, like before it was even sort of there was a definition on it. It helped sort of defined by the process. So Instagram kind of just started out as I guess like almost like a sketchbook or a place to draft out of. So it sort of evolved, even though the idea is what propelled it initially, and that's in essence what conceptual art is, the heart of it. So it made sense, but it took people sort of acknowledging it, because for so long, again, creating art in a closed door sort of environment and no one ever saying anything, and I was kind of left with a lot. I was just used to creating things, thinking about it myself, and that was that. So all of a sudden Instagram kind of opened up a conversation with people. It was a great asset in developing it further. And it was encouraging too, which I hadn't really experienced a whole lot of. That helped propel me to be consistent and develop it. The whole Instagram gallery became a consistent themed gallery with the ex-housewife portraits. It was going to be something that I would write about instead, but it ended up translating into something visual. So this is where I typically take the pictures, in my bathroom. And so, door open, lighting, we're out a few bulbs, and then object. Place it on there. If it needs to be held, I hold it with my left hand and shoot with my right into the mirror. And then I'll shoot, position, and work off the bevel. And that is how that is done. Pretty simple.